Shabbat Shalom. Good morning, everyone. I'm Rabbi Jenni Greenspan for Congregation Beth-El Zedek, and I'm glad to see some joining me this morning for our Torah talk. Before we begin our main service on our live stream this morning, we will be celebrating a bat mitzvah, so we will have both a live stream and a Zoom if you've received the link for the bat mitzvah to be able to participate. It's in our synagogue email list. And the live stream from our main website will, of course, also be live. So we're happy to have you join us for our service after this. But first, we'll gather a little bit. We'll have a bit of Torah talk. This morning for Torah talk, we'll be focusing on Parashat Ve'etchanan, the second Torah portion of the book of Deuteronomy. Our bat mitzvah will be doing some reading from the Torah portion she originally learned for her bat mitzvah date in May. So our main service will have a mixture of the two. And so here we'll focus on the one that would be for today's calendar, Ve'etchanan, which means, and I pleaded, and I reached out, Moses sharing that he had pleaded with God. So we'll get started in just a moment, but for now, Shabbat Shalom, good morning to Mickey Ashworth, to Jim Roth, to Alan Hamburger. So good to see you every week here, even if just your names. I know you're here with me, and Shabbat Shalom, and I'm so happy to see everyone this morning. As usual, if you haven't already, you can go to the Beth-El website, bez613.org, select the Shabbat resources, and then Torah Talk resources. You will be able to find a PDF of the Etz Chaim Chumash, of the entire Torah portion for the calendar. If you are following along in a physical book with me, I am on page 1025, 1025. If you are following along in a different form of a Chumash that is not Etz Chaim, I will be on Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 6 in just a moment. But good morning and Shabbat Shalom to Miles and Amanda Siegel. Shabbat Shalom. Good morning to Cheryl Toof and to Carol Steinfeld. So good to see all of you. And let's go ahead and get started. So as I mentioned, this week's Torah portion is called Ve'etchanan. There's a lot that goes on in this Torah portion. We first have Moses recounting that he had pleaded with God to be able to go into the land when the rest of the people are preparing to go into the land. And Moses, we'll remember from a few weeks ago in Parshat Chukat, when Moses struck the rock to give the people water, God then forbade Moses from getting to go into the land. Many of the commentators say that it was time for the people to receive new leadership. And Moses pleads to get to go in and to see the land, and God kind of meets Moses halfway and says that he can see it by going up to a mountain to look over the land, but that he cannot enter it. And that will end up being the closing of the entire book of Deuteronomy that we will see in several weeks' time. But there's that, and then we have a recounting of the Ten Commandments is also in this Torah portion, and perhaps one of the most famous passages of all of Torah, because it is in our daily service a couple of times a day, and that we do together every time we have services, is the Shema and the Ve'ahavta. And this morning, I want to focus on one of the verses in the Ve'ahavta. I'm just going to focus us way in on one verse, and that is Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 6. And this is the second verse of what we know as the Ve'ahavta. Ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ela asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha. And take to heart these instructions which I charge to you this day. Now, the English says take to heart. The Hebrew says al levavecha, that you should put these words or these things, these rituals, these commands, these words of comfort and offering that God has given to us today, al levavecha. And Hebrew speakers will notice that that's somewhat of a strange preposition to use. God is telling us to put all of this on our hearts. And the Kotzker Rebbe, Menachem Memdel of Kotsk, one of the Hasidic masters, asked why? Why should we put the words, the commandments, the love, the blessings, everything from God on our hearts? Should it not be, in fact, be in our hearts? Shouldn't it say, Asher anochi mitzavcha hayom be-levavecha, instead of al levavecha? And the Kotzker Rebbe instead answers and says, no, we are to place them on our hearts because inevitably hearts break. And when our heart breaks is when we most need those words right there, ready to fall in and offer comfort and offer love. And I think that it is perfect timing that most years this particular Torah portion, Ve'et with this line from Ve'ahavta, falls right in between two holidays that don't always get the most acknowledgement. They fall right between Tisha B'Av, the 9th of the month of Av, and Tu B'Av, the 15th of the month of Av. Today, I think, is the 11th of Av. We're right in between them. And it might be the 12th. We're right in between. And these 2 days have very polar feelings. If you notice often, the Jewish calendar, all of our holidays invite us to feel different emotions. We tend to think of holidays or all celebrations, but in fact, the Jewish calendar tends to ask us to think in different emotions for each holiday. For example, Purim is definitely a holiday of joy. The moment that we reach the month of Purim, we're supposed to start getting happier and happier and just unabashed joy. Passover is a joy, but it's a joy at liberation. It's a joy about possibility. It's a feeling of anticipation and future looking. Yom Kippur is a holiday of humility, of looking into ourselves and saying, how can we be better? How can we return to our best selves? These two little holidays in Av, Tisha B'Av and Tu B'Av, are kind of polar difference in emotions. Tisha B'Av is a holiday of sadness. This is a holiday of mourning. Traditionally, we mourned the destruction of the temples in Jerusalem, but we've also mourned every other disaster that has happened to our people. This year, it feels particularly poignant for me as I mourn the communal gatherings that happen in our spaces, just as the temple of old was gone, and therefore we had to rethink how Judaism works. Today, our spaces of gathering are less accessible to us, and we are rethinking our spaces, and there's a sadness in that, and there's a mourning in that. But Tu B'Av, the holiday which will begin on Tuesday night and go into Wednesday this coming week, is a holiday of love. It was traditionally the holiday where the young women of Jerusalem would go out and say, I would love to get married, and love and showing of love. It's kind of a precursor to the way we do Valentine's Day almost, but not exactly. But it's a holiday of love. And here right in between, we have the verse from Ve'ahavta saying the words Al Levavecha. And the Kotzker Rabbi is inviting us to say these words on our hearts, they will fall into our hearts. Because between Tisha B'Av and Tu B'Av, we are today in Shabbat Nachamu, a Shabbat of comfort. The Haftarah traditionally read with this Torah portion is called Nachamu based on the first couple of words of it. I encourage you to read down in the PDF of our Torah portion to take a look at the Haftarah as well. It is a move from the brokenheartedness and pain toward comfort and hope, and then hope and love in just a few days. We have lost a lot in the last 5 months. We've lost our physical communities and our physical spaces where we've gathered. We've lost 150,000 American lives just to the COVID virus. We've seen so much hatred and division in our world. There's a lot that is causing sadness and pain, and our hearts are broken, which means that the words of love and blessing and ritual and comfort and coming together now have the opportunity to fall into our hearts. So my blessing for us today for Shabbat Nachamu, and for Tuesday and Wednesday for Tu B'Av, a holiday of love, that we allow ourselves to show that our hearts are broken so that we can receive that comfort and that love from one another. May we feel it, may we reach out and offer it, and may we continue to move forward with hope, with comfort, and with love. Shabbat Shalom. I hope you will join us for our live streamed service for our Bat Mitzvah Izzy Paul. We will be both on our live stream from the Beth-El webpage, or if you received the congregational email and would prefer to join by Zoom, that link is available to you there. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for joining me, and may you have a week of comfort and love and healing. And Shabbat Shalom, try and join me. And I see you joined me after I did you said Shabbat Shalom after I did an earlier one. So Shabbat Shalom. Thank you all for joining me. Have a week of comfort and love.